Chairman, as we hurtle towards a government shutdown, with House Republicans unable to fulfill their most basic responsibility of agreeing to a funding plan that keeps the government going, last night we shut down the floor because they couldn't even pass their own rules. And yet, here we are, having another hearing to discuss migrants who have crossed the border. And I am sure that once again, we will hear the same false talking points, blaming everything on Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden. The fact is that this country needs fundamental reforms, positive reforms to an outdated immigration system that desperately needs to be modernized, that would allow for multiple legal pathways for immigrants who are already contributing to our country and those who seek to come to this country to contribute. There is so much fear-mongering going on that it is difficult to know exactly where to start. But let me say this. First, the Biden administration is enforcing immigration laws. In fact, the administration has been so heavy-handed in recent months that I have serious concerns about how they are conducting border enforcement. This is especially true when it comes to the administration's regulations that limit access to asylum and the use of expedited processing procedures for families. Today, there are nearly 38,000 people in immigration and customs enforcement detention, which, by the way, is what the Trump administration averaged in fiscal year 2018. But if you listen to my colleagues on the other side, you would think that there are 0 people in detention. The Biden administration has also significantly increased removals in a way that I worry violates migrants' due process rights and their ability to lawfully seek asylum. Since the end of Title 42 last year, the Biden administration has removed or returned to Mexico over 400,000 individuals, including over 65,000 individual members of family units, including children. This total is nearly equivalent to the number of people removed in all of fiscal year 2019 under Donald Trump. So the idea that the administration is not enforcing the law is ridiculous. Second, and I think this is a really important point, this hearing is supposed to distract the American people from the fact that my Republican colleagues have absolutely no accomplishments to run on. Once again, they are trying to scapegoat immigrants by making claims about undocumented immigrants' use of social services. However, under our laws, they are not eligible for the vast majority of federal benefits. But beyond that, it is absurd to say that immigrants are a drain on the economy. Study after study have proven that the U.S. economy is driven by immigrants, both documented and undocumented. Undocumented immigrants pay an estimated $7 billion in sales and excise taxes, $3.6 billion in property taxes, and $1.1 billion in personal income taxes every year. In 2019 alone, Mexican undocumented households contributed nearly $9 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. And that same year, undocumented Mexican workers contributed $14.5 billion to Social Security and Medicare through the taxes taken out of their paychecks, which means that they contributed billions of dollars to entitlement programs that American citizens have the access to, but those undocumented immigrants have no ability to benefit from. Immigrants don't hurt the economy. Let me say that again to the American people who may be watching this fiasco. Immigrants do not hurt the economy. What hurts us are antiquated laws that require the detention of lawful asylum seekers and inefficient and arbitrary waiting periods for work authorization. Laws that lack sufficient lawful pathways for those seeking refuge or better opportunities here. Thanks to President Biden, unemployment is at the lowest level in 50 years. But while employers are growing, they cannot find the workers they need despite attempts to hire American workers. The system keeps out so many immigrants who could help fill these crucial economic needs. As we have been saying for months, we need to expand lawful pathways for those seeking protection to ease the burden at the border. As crises reverberate around the globe and more people need refuge, the law remains frozen in time. We have not had significant updates to the overall immigration system in roughly 30 years. And sadly, in this Congress, led by a party that continues to be paralyzed by self-inflicted wounds, needed immigration reform appears to be out of reach. And now, the administration's supplemental border funding request, which has a lot for both parties to like, has turned into a partisan political football where we are refusing aid to Ukraine against Russian invasion because Republicans want to shut down immigration. Ignoring this request imperils the safe mobility offices in the hemisphere, where migrants can be assessed for their eligibility for refugee status or other lawful pathways. These centers encourage migrants to forego taking the dangerous journey to the border, relieving. These centers need additional funding to be successful. People want to lawfully. When the Biden administration provided Nicaraguans and Haitians border crossings between ports of entry from those countries by 99%. Alternatively, when the Trump administration cut off refugees from the Congo, we started seeing Congolese refugees at the southern border when we had never seen them there before. We also desperately need the additional funds requested for the Shelter and Services Program to reimburse states, localities, and NGOs working to welcome migrants. These are vital funds that would aid many of the states that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say are overburdened. Unfortunately, Republicans in the House remain obsessed with pushing H.R. 2, their cruel, extreme, and unworkable legislation, which would only create more chaos at the border. The Senate has made it clear that that bill is a non-starter. And I worry that some of my colleagues are pushing that legislation because they actually have no interest in actually solving the problem. It is politically beneficial to them to have immigrants out there as a tool to create political division. Just last week, when a member of this subcommittee gave the game away, when he said, quote, "I'm not willing to do too damn much right now to help a Democrat and to help Joe Biden's approval rating." We have been trying an enforcement-only strategy for 30 years, and the results are plain for everyone to see. We can only solve the complex issue of immigration by addressing it holistically and in a bipartisan way that deals with our economic, our humanitarian, and our security needs, not an end run around Congress for bad policy in a supplemental funding bill. I look forward to hearing from all of our witnesses and the perspectives they bring on this issue. I yield back.
I now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Nadler, for his opening statement.